integrity, absence of deceit, non-violence, patience, uprightness, service of the teacher, purity of body and mind, steadfastness, and self-control. 9 qualities are described in the first of these 5 verses, that is the 7th verse. No other things have been said on the side. Shri Krishna has just placed words here. This is the form of Gnan, wisdom. If I were to say in another way, then they show the effect that Gnan, wisdom, has on one's life. These qualities can be seen in a behavior in the life of a person who is wise. We will understand each of these qualities in turn. The first thing that is said is amanitvam, which means humility. Shankaracharya says that mananiha bhavaha ma nitvam atmana shlaganam tat abhava amanitvam. He says that a feeling of getting respect is the opposite of humility. This is when a person is boasting his own self. The absence of this feeling is humility. There's a very nice phrase in English to describe a person who has a characteristic that is the opposite to humility, and what we say that he is blowing his own trumpet. A person who has humility never boasts. He never blows his own trumpet. Ramanujacharya says that Utkrishta chananeshu avardina rahi tattvam amanitvam. I love this definition very much. Freedom from the superiority complex towards eminent people is humility. I like this so much, I'm repeating this. Freedom from the superiority complex towards eminent people is humility. A person with humility is one who has no feeling of contempt, disrespect, or neglect towards a great soul, a wise person, a knowledgeable person, a saint, or a great personality. 4 things can happen. First, you can become joined with them, and you have feelings towards them. Otherwise, 1 of 3 things can happen. You can ignore them, you have contempt for them, or you neglect them. Ramanujacharya says that the first out of these 4 shows the quality of Gnan, wisdom. A true wise person does not have contempt for anyone. He certainly does not do this towards a great personality. He thinks that at least this person knows 2 things more than me, and therefore I should not have contempt for him. I should respect him. Absence of humility is considering oneself to be great. Absence of humility is wishing for respect or for worship. Absence of humility is also getting happy when one respects you or when one worships you. All of this is absence of humility. Also, if a person boasts about himself or his qualities, or describes himself or his qualities, whether he's educated or not educated, then this person has an absence of humility. If a person has a quality and keeps describing it, then he can be considered as having an absence of humility. Then how much lacking of humility will a person be if he does not have the quality and yet keeps describing it? A person who does not have any of this is a person with humility. He has no expectation of being worshipped, and he has no expectation of respect. Not only that, but if a person worships him or respects him, then he does not get happy from this. He does not think that, look how they worship me. He does not even have this. It is said in the Vishnu Purana for success of yoga that respect, worship, and being pleased is all detrimental. The Vishnu Purana even goes as far to say that a yogi who gets insulted by people or who is criticized by people instantly attains siddhi, spiritual powers. Perhaps the saint have said this thing very simply, that the person who criticizes us is in reality washing away our sins. Therefore, the more that people criticize me, then the more that I like it. They are being washed away. How can one wash away their sins alone? Remember that other people help the person wash away his sins. And that is why I remember the Vishnu Purana, that such a yogi instantly attains siddhi, spiritual powers. The Vishnu Purana says that mumukshu, one who seeks release from bondages, should behave in such a way without wavering from dharma that people neglect him. When people come running after a person, then this is not a good state on the path of yoga. This is because what happens is that one becomes stuck amongst people. Love is fine, relationships are fine, and feelings are even fine, but one should not hold on to people. It should not be as if one cannot go without people. One should never feel as if there is nobody here today. If they are not there, then it does not matter. What is there in this? I remember the event in the life of a saint. Many people used to come to him, and the saint said, "Wow, Lord, it is your grace that so many people are coming here. I'm becoming the means of giving so many people success in Dharma. Lord, I'm turning so many people towards you." He would get bliss when people would come, and then it so happened that people are funny. You never know what to expect from people. People turned elsewhere. When one sheep turned somewhere, then all the other sheep also turned there. Nobody came there for 2 to 5 years. The people near him said that, "Now, what, nobody comes here. Should we also stay here?" The saint said that, "This does not matter. Lord, now you and I are alone. When everybody was here, then we could not speak much with you, but now we will all be able to talk a lot." This is called humility. This is because when one has a wish for people, then what happens is that this person falls into being colored by people. He keeps thinking that what will people like? What will people like? What should I do so that everybody respects me? Everybody will worship me. Everybody will bow down to me. I'll show you a solution to bring humility. This is that the satkarma, the divine acts I'm doing, Lord, I am doing for you. And the oblations of these satkarma divine acts may be coming in the form of people, which I accept, but I will not run after them. Manap mane dukhishat neva sadhana janaha dukkha nidanavat manam yogi parichayatet. A wise person never wavers or becomes sad as a result of respect or disrespect. Knowing that in reality, respect is a reason for sorrows, the yogi should leave it. When does one feel disrespect? It is only after one has been given respect. While one does not get respect, one cannot get disrespect. Only a person from whom the concept of respect has arisen can feel disrespect. If there is a small child and you tell it to go to the room, then the child does not feel much. The child will go out of the room. But when the child gets older, earns some money, gives donations in 2 or 4 places, gets asked about by every 5th person, and has gone to sit somewhere at the beginning, he goes and sits at the back. Someone spots this person and says, "This person's sitting here." 2 people go to him and tell him to sit at the front. Then they make him sit at the front, and he feels good because of this. Everybody gaze falls towards him, and he thinks that, "Look, wow, everybody's looking at me." On the first time, they made him sit at the front. He then goes to a second place, sits at the back, and somebody spots him and brings him towards the front. After he came to the front 2 times, this person has become unhappy for life. If a person who gets the first row twice and goes into 3rd place, then in the first 2 times the poor person has very naturally gone and sat down at the back. But now he cannot even sit at the back. He just stands there and looks around to see whether anyone is looking at him and whether any volunteer will come and help him. And if they do not come and see him, or if they do not come, then it becomes difficult for him. Why does this difficulty arise? It arose because he got a front row seat twice. If he had not got this front row seat twice, then he would have peacefully sat down wherever he went. Where did this feeling of being disrespected come from? It came from when one got respect. That is why the yogi should cut the root and should never have an expectation of respect. A person may get respect, and this is fine, but one should not have an expectation for it. Everybody wishes for respect, and it is the nature of human beings that everybody needs it. Each and every person needs it. Each and every person has this wish. But who gets respect? How many of you recite the Vishnu Sahasra, the 1000 names of Vishnu? In this, 3 names of God come in the same line. They are worth understanding. It shows the whole way of how to get respect. 3 of the names given are Amani, Manada, Manyaha. Lord Vishnu has 1000 names. What is Lord Vishnu himself like? First is Amani, meaning one who has no expectation of respect. Second, he is Manada, meaning he gives respect. The word Manada is split into words Mana, respect, and Da, meaning to give. As a consequence, he is Manyaha, meaning that he gets respect. One never gets respect by asking for it. One only gets respect by giving it. When Guruji was studying at college, then there was a friend of his speaking Hindi who was from North India. When Guruji went to his house, then there would be a child aged 3 or 4. the child would be speaking very sweetly, and Guruji liked one thing a lot. Young children call everyone by addressing them as up. Valerie, what does that mean? Hindi test? Up. You, exactly. Meaning you. Up means you with respect. The child would say, "Dear uncle, do come here. Dear aunt, do come here. Dear uncle, what do you do?" Guruji found this strange at the time. The reason for this is that the majority of our children in the Gujarati community had the habit of calling everyone "du," meaning you, addressed to younger people. The young child says, "Father, where did you go?" or "Grandfather, what are you doing?" Then when the child becomes a little understanding and its mother gives it training, then it begins to say "tame," meaning you, addressed to older people. And there is no doubt about this, but when a young child begins to learn, then it calls, before a young child begins to learn, then it calls everyone "tu," meaning you, addressed to younger people. Guruji found this very strange. All our children in Gujarati say "tu," meaning you, addressed to younger people, and in Hindi it's so nice that everybody says "up," meaning you with respect. Guruji asked his friend how this works. He told him that it's very simple, that whenever we speak to young children, then we always say "up," meaning you with respect. He told Guruji that they say, "Son, you come here. Son, go and get some water. Son, we do not play like that." A young child is imitative, and when it hears "up," meaning you with respect, over and over again, then it always begins its speech with "up," meaning you with respect. Guruji remembered the Vishnu Sahasra, the 1,000 names of Vishnu. Amani manada maniha. Do not ask for respect, give respect, and you will get respect. One does not get respect by asking for it. And if one gets it, then it will not last. If one maybe has wealth, power, or some effectiveness or strength, then while people are sitting in front of you, then they'll give you respect. But as soon as you get up and go, then they begin gossiping about you. Kailash Pandit says that, "Mehfil nityare sachi sharuvat thase hashe, ke mare gaya pachi mari vat thai hashe." The song only begins at the time when people talk about me after I go. What can you do about that? Shri Krishna therefore says that one should have humility. This is the quality of Gnan, wisdom. You see that a wise person always gives everybody respect. Goswami Tulsidas Ji writes while describing a saint in a Ramcharitmanas, "Sabahi man prada apu amani." He gives everybody respect and does not expect respect himself. The first quality of Gnan is humility. The second quality is Adam Bitvam, meaning integrity, absence of deceit. Srimad Adi Shankaracharya Ji says that Swadharma Prakriti Karanam Dam Bitvan Tat Abhava Adam Bitvam. Srimad Adi Shankaracharya Ji says that showing one's righteousness is ostentation. Freedom from this is integrity, meaning the absence of deceit. If a person is constantly showing other people how good he is, then this is hypocrisy. Many people make these efforts. They say that we are this good, we are this good, we are this good. This is ostentation. Another word for ostentation in the English language is the popular word hypocrisy, but I'll go even further than this by saying that it is actually ostentation. This is much closer to what is meant here than the word hypocrisy. Ostentation. This is the attitude of showiness and the attitude of showing one's good qualities. This is ostentation. And the cause behind making a show of all of this is that the person has a selfish interest, for example, to get respect, recognition, fame, and plaudits. This is what is called ostentation. If one does not have this ostentation, then they have the quality of unostentatiousness. Ramanujacharya Ji says that dharma chitva yasva prajoyananta dharma anushtanam dambhava tad rahit tattvam advam adibitvam. Ramanujacharya Ji says that ostentation is the practice of righteousness for winning fame as a virtuous person. Freedom from this is unostentatiousness. If a person is practicing righteousness in a life, then one should automatically believe that they're a good person. Teachers ask why the person is applying dharma in their lives. 5 people say that he's a very good and he becomes ostentatious. Who can you call a wise person? It is a person who applies dharma in their lives, but there is no show of this. If another person finds out in his own way, then this is a different thing, but this person does not blow his own trumpet. And that is why I say that ostentatious is a better way to describe this characteristic than hypocrisy. There's a lot of ostentatiousness in society in each and every way. If a person has wealth, then they make a show of that wealth. If you go to a lot of people's houses, then you don't see furniture, but you see a lot of currency notes. They make a lot of show of all these decorations, but I feel in my mind like saying that rather than that, why don't you just stick currency notes so that everyone will know that you have this? If something has a use, then a person may want it, but it is not to deceive other people. The Gita says that ostentatiousness is an attitude of deceiving people. Then whether it is through satkarma, divine acts, or through dharma, it is not the attitude of deceiving others. Madhusudan Saraswati ji says that Atma alpatvam gnatvapi mahatva padarshanam dambhava, saying, knowing one's lack of greatness and yet showing one's greatness is ostentatiousness. Such a person may be 5 foot deep, but he shows himself to be 100 feet deep. When you dive deep in a swimming pool, then it doesn't matter so much. But when we see another person diving in a deep end, then you feel as if he's enjoying himself a lot, but the water is very deep. We do not know how to swim properly, and so we decide to dive in 3 feet water. When this happens, then our feet hit the ground of the swimming pool. This happens to so many people. They seem to look deep, but if you dive, then your feet will break. This is ostentatiousness. That is why Madhusudan Saraswati ji says that Atma alpatvam gnavapatvi mahatva pradarshanam dambhava. Knowing one's lack of greatness, and yet showing one's greatness is ostentatiousness. If a person has words, actions, or cleverness, then showing one's greatness through this, or showing one's righteousness for gain, worship, or fame, is a name of ostentatiousness. Ask yourself the simple question of what we do righteousness for. If we're doing righteousness for the Supreme Soul, then we need to show it to everybody else? That is why it is said in our scriptures that one should not show their satkarma, the divine acts. The more one describes their satkarma, then the more that their punya, the opposite of sins, reduce. If I were to say in simple language, then if we have a set of jewelry, then at best we can show it to a goldsmith saying that I wish to show you this set. You cannot take the set of jewelry and show the grocer. There would be no meaning in doing this. A person who shows a set of jewelry to a grocer is ostentatious. Many people are like this, that even when they go to get groceries, then they wear the whole set. You're going to get groceries. This is called ostentation. Ostentation is a demonic characteristic. When the 16th chapter comes, then we'll see in the Deva Asura Sampag Vibhag Yoga, the yoga of the distinction between the divine and the demonic endowments. God first describes the divine qualities, and then from the 4th verse he describes the demonic characteristics, the qualities of a demon, as Dambo Darpo Atmitnashcha, Krodha Pashunam Evacha, Agnanam Cha Abhikatascha, Partha Sampadam Asuram. Ostentation, arrogance, excessive pride, as also harshness and ignorance. These, O Partha Arjun, are the endowments of him who is born with a demonic nature. This is the wealth of a person with a demonic nature. Having a mask on one's face is ostentation. It is one thing to be a good person, and another thing to show oneself to be a good person. It is very difficult to become a good person. One needs to make efforts in order to become a good person, and one needs to perform penances in order to become a good person. These people take the shortcut of ostentation. They wear a mask showing that they're good people. Great speakers say it so logically that if you do some work with ostentation or do some work without ostentation, on the outside it is the same, but on the inside the intention is different. Krutam dambat adam bhatva karma tulya shambhavet shemika phala madhyam syat dvityam sukha sadhanam. Let us say that there are two people performing a yagna of Vishnu Yaga, a sacrifice for Lord Vishnu for 3 or 5 days. What was the reason for which they performed the Vishnu Yaga, the sacrifice for Vishnu? Was it performed through ostentation in order to show people, or was it done without ostentation for one's spiritual development because one wanted to perform the penance? Now the reason can be one of the two. One may even have done it for show or because of ostentation. Tulsidas says that Swantas Sukhaya Tulasi Raghunatha Gata. For your own happiness, Tulsi, sing about Sri Ram. One had to perform the yagna, the sacrifice. All the actions of the swaha that was said for 3 to 5 days, expenses came into this, and all the people that came there were the same for both. The only difference was in the intention of the person. But what happens is that there is a very big difference in the consequences. For a person who has performed works with ostentation, the work becomes labour, and for a person who has performed works without ostentation, the works become a mean for happiness. Therefore, the result is determined by what the person's goal was. The work remains the same. If a person had come to listen to the Gita, then why has the person come to sit down? He sits for 1.5 hours between 7 o'clock to 8:30, but what was the reason behind which he sat there? Has he sat there because of ostentation, so he can say to everybody that I go to listen to the Gita, and that he can show that I have an interest in the Gita? For 1.5 hours, has this person performed the work of sitting at a discourse of the Gita or not? He has. But has he sat there to listen with ostentation? If he has done this without ostentation, then it will become a means to his happiness. The person will get gnan, wisdom. This is because he has come himself out of his own interest. If a person has come to show, then it is fine, because everybody will see it, and he can show 5 people that he has come and the matter is finished, but he comes without ostentation. Guruji used to give an example during his discourses. A father has gotten his daughter engaged and is sitting in a car next to his future son-in-law. The car is standing at a traffic light, and a beggar comes in front of him. First, he immediately pulls out the glass on the window up. Now, beggars are used to the glass on the windows going up. If you pull the glass on the window and he walks away, then you'll think that how will my business run? Therefore, he starts banging on the windows. We learnt how to pull up the glass on the windows, and they learnt how to bang on the windows. Now, when the beggar came at the beginning to ask, then one immediately pulled the glass on the window up. Now, when this beggar would stand there banging on the glass of one's window, he is thinking that he's got his daughter engaged, his future son-in-law is sitting next to him, and it looks so bad that the beggar is standing next to him and he's not even giving the beggar anything. He would feel that the son-in-law is thinking that he has no feeling of pity. He is not giving any donations, he is not performing any satkarma, and it would look so bad in front of his future son-in-law. What he then does is that he takes out a 10 rupee note in style, pulls the glass in the window down, and tells the beggar to come. Like this, he gives the 10 rupee note to the beggar. Who has he given this 10 rupee note to? He has not given this 10 rupee note to the beggar, but to his future son-in-law. It was for his future son-in-law, and it was in order to impress his future son-in-law. This was ostentation because he performed these satkarma, but why did he do them? He did them for show. He did them in order to make a show in front of the groom. This was the ostentation. Now, has a 10 rupee note not gone from him? The content in his wallet has reduced by 10 rupees, but what has happened now is that he is given through ostentation, in that he has 10 rupees less and nothing else that happened. If he had given 10 rupees with feelings, then he may have gotten punya, the opposite of sins, because of this. Therefore, the reason why I give this example over and over again is to explain that 2 people are doing the exact same work, and the same amount of work is done, through which one puts in efforts, expends money, incurs time, and does the same amount of things. But if one has done them through ostentation, then it all goes through waste, through labour. But if one has done it through feelings and without ostentation, then he'll attain the consequences of it. A lot of satkarma takes place in society today. All of them are ostentation. All of them are for show, that we are like this, we have done this, and we have done that. If this is the case, then one will not get the consequences of it. Another detriment that ostentation leads to is that the person wants to show himself to be good, and there are 2 ways for him to show that he's good. If one in reality becomes good, then he's going to appear as good, or one takes a shortcut and wears a mask showing himself to be good. As a consequence, 5 to 7 people nearby say that you're good, you're good, you're good. As a result of this, an imaginary satisfaction comes to his mind that I am good. And when this imaginary satisfaction that I am good comes to him, then he does not perform the efforts of becoming good in reality. Now he has stopped from ever becoming a good person. This is the biggest detriment of all. What can one do in order to become saved from ostentation? There is only one solution. Decide that who am I a good person for? One wishes to become a good person, and that is a very good thing, but who does one wish to become a good person for? There can be 2 answers. One either wishes to become good for society, or one wishes to become good for the Supreme Soul. If one wishes to become good for society, then ostentation will come knowingly or unknowingly, it is going to come. One should wish to become a good person for the Lord. If this is the case, then the question of ostentation does not remain, and wanting to become a good person for God is called a penance. The third quality of a wise person that is described is ahimsa, non-violence. Srimad Adi Shankaracharya ji says that ahimsa, non-violence, is ahimsanam praninam aprinanam, not causing anyone harm, loss or detriment in any way. Ramanujacharya ji says that ahimsa, non-violence, is van manakalehi parapira rahit tattvam ahimsanam, the absence of the tendency to injure others by speech, mind or body. Non-violence means not to give pain to others. We should do a little analysis of violence. The feeling of violence is at the root barbarity, and this barbarity is born from anger, and this anger is born from desire. The reason for violence is barbarity, the reason for barbarity is anger, and the reason for anger is desire. The more desires that the person has, then the more violent that he is. And by violent, I do not mean a person who walks around with a knife. It is not like that. There are many different types of violence. The more desires one has, then the more violent that person will be. And modern psychologists say that the more unsatisfied desires the person has, the more desirous the person is, and the more perverse that his desires become, then the more and more violent that this person becomes. I read this once in a book of behavioral psychology. When we read it, then we get sad, but although the relationship of a husband and wife should be of love and feelings, violence comes into this. And the violence is born from the unsatisfied desires of the male. Both are married, both are living together, and both may not even have arguments. It is not as if he is hitting her when they have arguments. It is not like that. But the unsatisfied desires of the male many times become manifest in a form of violence. Whenever there are unsatisfied desires, then violence will definitely manifest. Therefore, at the root of violence is desire. Guruji once saw a film while he was studying at college, a Bollywood film, old Bollywood film, and he still remembers it. There was a villain, and he was thinking that, how can a person do this? He did not understand his behavior at the time. The villain in his film used to kidnap children and would ask for money in return for them. There was an image where he was sitting on a chair smoking a cigarette, and a camera moved to a table where there was a monkey that was sitting there upside down, and this person would burn the monkey with his lit cigarette. When Guruji saw this image, then he has always remembered it. He can never forget this film. He does not remember the film, but he has remembered this scene very much. At that time he felt, why is he doing this? Then he studied psychology and read books of it, and read in one place that this thing shows that this person is endlessly desirous. And while his desires are not being complete, in some way or the other, the desire is being manifest in a form of violence. And then he remembered that film, that when the villain would kidnap children and ask for money, the people would not give him money and would contact the police. So a lot of tension was building in this villain. He was thinking about why his money had not come, and when he had to ask them to drop a certain amount from a car in a certain place, but he had not received that thing. This person had unfulfilled desires. You see in everyday life that many people are like this. There is no reason for it, and yet they perform acts of violence. If there is a fly sitting there, then they smash their books and kill the fly. What has this fly ruined of yours? We manifest our desires into violence in many different ways. You do not want flies in your house and they are unhygienic. This is right, but you should keep your house clean. You should find other solutions through which the fly or the insect cannot come inside the house. There is violence in the smallest of all things. You see many people that when the child does the smaller things, then they hit the child straight away. This attitude and behavior shows that the person has unfulfilled desires that they are manifesting in the form of violence. The reason why a wise person has a quality of non-violence is that he has no unfulfilled desires. If one has experienced the one Kshetragna, the knower of the field, in all Kshetra, in all fields, then towards whom can he commit acts of violence? In what way can such a person commit acts of violence? Who can he hit? Gangata iti antikam. This is because at the time he realizes that the person who I'm going to hit is also me. Therefore, non-violence never happens. This is because he understands that non-violence towards anyone is at the root ultimately violence towards oneself. That violence towards anyone is at the root ultimately violence towards oneself. That is why he does not perform acts of violence. A true wise person is one in whose presence everybody experiences abhayata, fearlessness, and nirbhayatya, lack of fear. Abhayatva, fearlessness, is greater than nirbhayatya, lack of fear. In the 16th chapter, when God describes the qualities of a divine person, divine qualities, then the very first divine quality stated is Abhayam Sattva Sanshuddhir Gnane Yoga Vyavasthiti. Fearlessness is the number one quality of a divine person. Fearlessness, purity of mind, wise apportionment of knowledge and concentration. A true wise person is one in whose presence everybody experiences abhayatva, fearlessness. In the Valmiki Ramayana, Sri Ramchandraji says that Abhayam Sarva Bhutebhyo Dadamya Tadvatam Mama. I'll give only fearlessness to all creatures. Sri Ramchandraji says that this is his duty as a king. Abhayam Sarva Bhutebhyo Dadamya Tadvatam Mama. I'll give only fearlessness to all creatures. If you experience fear in the presence of a person, then consider that this person is not a true wise person and that he is not a realized soul. One should feel that this person is their own person. And when he realizes that this person has fear, then he breaks those walls and he breaks those fears. He creates such an intimacy, and this is the quality of a wise person. A person tells others to speak 4 feet away from them and to do this, and if they do this, then they're not a true wise person. One should feel as if the person is their own person. How many types of violence are there? There is bodily violence, mental violence, and self-destruction. We limit violence to not killing flies. We say that we are very non-violent. Why? We say that we do not kill the flies in our houses. And it is right that you should not kill a fly. I wrote earlier that you should keep cleanliness. But violence is not just killing insects and not just killing bees that are in the pots. This is very basic non-violence. Even deeper than bodily violence is mental violence. I'll say one thing about bodily violence, that at the same time as having the attitude that I should not hit others, one should have the attitude that others should not hit me. Because this is also a type of violence. We know about the non-violence of freedom fighters, that the other should keep hitting me. No. According to the Gita's perspective, and in Shri Krishna's meaning, one should not let others hit them. This is because if the violence of me hitting others is taking place, then if the other hits me, then this also becomes violence. And if I encourage others to hit me, then this is also violence. Whether one cheek or another cheek is struck, something is struck, an act of striking someone is violence. Whether anybody's body gets pain or my body gets pain, if the act of giving pain to the body of creature is violence, then if I give pain to another, then it is regarded as violence. Does this mean that if the other person hits me, then it's non-violence? No. This is also violence. If the bullet of a gun comes towards one, then this does not become non-violence. If I hit another, then this is violence. But if that gun is turned around and comes here, then is this non-violence? No. Such double standards will not work. One person asked me many years ago that Christ says that if a person strikes you on one cheek, then you should show them the other cheek. But to what extent should we do this? The person told me that such time has come that if one shows the other cheek, then they will strike us on the other cheek. So what should we do? I told him that then find a third cheek, and that third cheek will be of that person who struck you. This is necessary. Does this mean that I'm saying to start fights? No. Shri Krishna's non-violence is such that one should create such a character for themselves where one does not let others strike them even on the first cheek. Nobody should even be able to touch you. You should create such a character. You should enhance your power to this level. This is the non-violence of Shri Krishna. If Shri Krishna were talking about the non-violence of not killing a fly or not hitting another person, then the same Shri Krishna is taking Arjuna into the war of the Mahabharata. If we consider non-violence to be not to kill anybody, then Arjuna is non-violent. Arjuna is wise, so why is Shri Krishna preaching to him about non-violence? Arjuna says in the first chapter of the Gita that Yadi mam aparitakaram ashanam shastrapanahya tatrasharane hanyas tanme shatrama bhavet. Far better would it be for me if the sons of Dhritarashtra, with weapons in hand, should slay me in a battle, while I remain unresisting and unarmed. Arjun says this in the first chapter. Arjun says that I will not attack and I will just stand there. It does not matter if the Kauravas kill me. How non-violent is Arjun? And to the same Arjun, Shri Krishna is saying this here. This is non-violence. Therefore, in bodily violence, just as important as the attitude that I should not hit others, is the attitude that others should not hit me. Only then is it non-violence. Second, mental violence is going on a lot in society, and this is taking place on a very subtle level. This is the attitude of hitting others' minds. Many years ago, Guruji heard something nice when he was speaking to someone. When the daughter of a middle-class family is getting married, then if this girl cannot wear more than a £800 or £1,000 worth of clothes, because these people don't have the wealth of more than this, then if we go to this girl's wedding wearing clothes worth £5,000, then this is violence. This is the violence of a very subtle level that perhaps cannot be seen to people. This is violence. Not even a drop of blood falls, but if this girl is standing on the reception stage wearing £1,000 worth of clothes, and if we're standing next to her wearing £5,000 worth of clothes, then even this is violence. Or if the groom is wearing a very simple suit and we're standing next to him wearing an Italian suit and take a picture, then this is violence. If this person is wearing £1,000 worth of clothes, then I should not wear clothes worth more than £800. It is their wedding and not ours. And maybe if we wish to wear clothes worth £5,000, then we can wear them, but on the day before the wedding, we should go to the girl's house and say, "Here, sister, here are clothes worth £7,000. Wear these tomorrow, and I'll come to your wedding tomorrow." Do this, otherwise it will be mental violence. The attitude of making others feel small is mental violence. The attitude of bringing others down is mental violence. And this goes on a lot in society. Where else has the showness arisen from? It is from the attitude of bringing others down, and this is violence. Third is destruction of the self. The peak of non-violence is shown in the Patanjali Yog Darshan. Ahimsa pratishanam tat sanniva vedatyagaha. A true non-violent person and a true wise person is one in whose presence even wild animals forget their venom towards each other. This is the peak of non-violence, and this is a true non-violent person. We all have heard the stories. There was a hermitage of rishis, and there was a river that was flowing by the hermitage. A lion and a deer would come together to drink water together by the river. How did this happen? This is not impossible. It is possible. If a person has so much love from the inside, then this is possible. This is the peak of non-violence. Technically, if we wish to understand non-violence, then our scriptures say that there are 81 types of violence. The first violence has 3 types: Kruta, Karita, and Anumodita. They are Sanskrit words, and so we'll understand them in their simple meanings. The first is Kruta, meaning violence that one themselves commit. This is direct involvement. The second is Karita, meaning making others perform violence. This is when one themselves don't perform violence but make others perform violence. They say that you go and do this. This is Karita. This is also violence. And the third is Anumodita, which is when one has not done anything themselves and has not made others do anything, but when others do it, they do not oppose it. This is also violence. There are the 3 types of the first violence: Kruta, Karita, and Anumodita. These are the 3 types of violence. Violence happens because of 3 root faults: anger, greed, and delusion. If there is anger, then there will be violence. One doesn't need to explain this because everybody knows this. If one gets angry, then they can strike someone hard. This is anger. Violence also happens as a result of greed. If you look at the majority of types of mental violence, then they happen as a result of greed. And thirdly, violence happens as a result of delusion. From delusion, a person becomes blind and commits acts of violence. That is why we have the word mohan, meaning blinded by delusion. Now, each type of violence, be it kruta, violence one themselves commit; karita, making others perform violence; and anumodita, when one does not oppose violence, falls within one of the three categories described earlier. Therefore, kruta, violence one themselves commit, is a result of anger, greed and delusion. Garita, making others perform violence, is as a result of anger, greed and delusion. And anumodita, when one does not oppose violence, is as a result of anger, greed and delusion. Therefore, from these, there are 9 types of violence. If we go further from this, then our scriptures say that violence has 3 levels. Mudhu matra, a soft amount, madhya matra, a medium amount, and ati matra, extreme amount. Each and every one of the 9 types of violence mentioned above all have 3 different levels as follows, and 9 times 3 equals 27 different types of violence. So here is a list of 27. First, kruta, violence one themselves commit from anger in a mrudu matra, soft amount. Number 2, kruta, violence one themselves commit from anger in the madhya matra, medium amount. Third, kruta, violence one themselves commit from anger in the ati matra, extreme amount. Fourth, kruta, violence one themselves commit from greed in the mrudu matra, soft amount. Fifth, kruta, violence one themselves commit from greed in the madhya matra, medium amount. Sixth, kruta, violence one themselves commit from greed in the ati matra, extreme amount. Seventh, kruta, violence one themselves commit from delusion in the mrudu matra, soft amount. Eighth, kruta, violence one themselves commit from delusion in the madhya matra, medium amount. Ninth, kruta, violence one themselves commit from delusion in the ati matra, extreme amount. 10th, karita, making others perform violence from anger in the mrudu matra, soft amount. Number 11, karita, making others perform violence from anger in a madhya matra, medium amount. 12th, karita, making others perform violence from anger in the ati matra, extreme amount. 13th, karita, making others perform violence from greed in the mrudu matra, soft amount. 14th, karita, making others perform violence from greed in the madhya matra, medium amount. 15th, karita, making others perform violence from greed in the ati matra, extreme amount. 16th, karita, making others perform violence from delusion in the mrudu matra, soft amount. 17th, karita, making others perform violence from delusion in the madhya matra, medium amount. 18th, karita, making others perform violence from delusion in the ati matra, extreme amount. 19th, karita, making others perform violence from anger in the mrudu matra, soft amount. 20th, karita, making others perform violence from anger in the madhya matra, medium amount. 21st, karita, making others perform violence from anger in the ati matra, extreme amount. 22nd, anumodita, when one themselves do not oppose violence from greed in the mrudu matra, soft amount. Then you got anumodita, when one does not oppose violence from greed in the madhya matra, medium amount. Anumodita, when one does not oppose violence from greed in the ati matra. 25th, anumodita, when one does not oppose violence from delusion in the mudra matra. And 26th, anumodita, when one does not oppose violence from delusion in the madhya matra. 27th, anumodita, when one does not oppose violence from delusion in the ati matra, extreme amount. And if we go even further than this, then each and every type of violence, of these 27 types of violence, can be done with the speech, the mind, or the body. Therefore, we can multiply these 27 types of violence by 3, leading to 81 types of violence. If one does not perform a single one of these 81 types of violence, then one can be considered as having the quality of ahimsa, non-violence. That is what Shri Krishna says here. Now look how subtle this has become. For example, one cannot perform kruta, violence one themselves commit, from anger in the mrudu matra, soft amount, even through the mind. For one cannot perform kruta, violence one themselves commit, from anger in the mrudu matra, soft amount, even through the speech. And one cannot perform kruta, violence they themselves commit, from anger in the ati matra, extreme amount, even through the speech. It works in each and every way. They amount to 81 types of violence. A person who does not commit even one of these can be called someone who has the quality of a true ahimsak, a true person who is non-violent. Just like there are 81 types of violence, in the same way there are 4 types of non-violence, so our scriptures say. They are pertaining to a particular place, pertaining to a particular time, pertaining to a particular event, or pertaining to a particular person. These are the 4 types of non-violence. What is pertaining to a particular place? A person keeps the quality of non-violence, but how? They say, for example, we're going to the holy city of Hardwar and therefore we will not perform any violence. Or we're going to the Nathdwara place of pilgrimage and we may hit insects in a house with a piece of plastic, but we won't do it in Nathdwara. I'm saying the example of the person hitting insects as a joke, but let us say that one resolves not to hurt anyone. He's having arguments with everybody in the house, but if he is going to a place of pilgrimage, he may think that so little by saying that we should have no arguments there. This is non-violence pertaining to a particular place. This is non-violence, but it is non-violence according to a place. Second is non-violence pertaining to a particular time. This is when one resolves to perform acts of non-violence within limits of time. A person is annoying his family every day, but on the day of Ekadashi, the holy 11th day of the lunar calendar, on the day of Punam, the half day of the full moon, he says that he will not give others sorrows. When he performs non-violence only at certain times, then this non-violence is pertaining to a particular time. The third is non-violence pertaining to a particular event. Time and event look like synonyms, but they are different in a certain way because one pertains to a particular time and one pertains to a particular event. How is this? Let us say that it's the birthday of our child and we resolve not to make anyone sad. It is the day of one's grandfather leaving his body and one resolves not to make anybody sad, or it's the day of our anniversary and we resolve not to make anybody sad. On any other day, if a beggar came, then one will reject the beggar and throw him out, but it's one's wedding anniversary, so how can they throw the beggar out? They therefore give the beggar money. This is non-violence pertaining to a particular event. And fourth is non-violence pertaining to a particular person. If someone has seen a sannyasi, a man of renunciation, in robes, then they will not make him sad. One resolves not to make a young child sad. One resolves not to make a Brahmin sad. People keep vows like this. This is non-violence pertaining to a particular person. But all these four types of non-violence should be made into resolves forever. Therefore, one who does not give sadness to any person at any place, at any time, at any event, then this type of non-violence is given the word in Sanskrit Mahavrat, a great vow. Therefore, one who performs none of the 81 types of violence that take place, and one who maintains all the four types of non-violence, can be called a person who performs a Mahavrat, a great vow. No hurt can reach anyone as a result for him. Such non-violence is a quality of a wise person. The fourth quality of Gnan, wisdom, is Shruti, patience. Is Shanti, patience. When Guruji was once giving a discourse on chapter 13 of the Gita, then two people came up to him at the end and asked him when this chapter is going to finish. It is certainly going to finish, and it will take place having studied the chapter in a lot of detail. This is because we are studying each and every word of this chapter. This chapter will then finish. Srimad Adi Shankaracharya says that endurance is a non-agitation of the mind even when subjected to wrong. Shantihi para prapya avikriya. The simple meaning of patience is a feeling of forgiveness. This is the quality of a wise person. The majority of our minds remain patient while something wrong does not happen to us. But as soon as something wrong happens to us, then we get up and lose patience. We ask, why did they do this? Or they did this. Do they not know? They do not know, but why are you getting disturbed? Patience is a quality of a wise person. A realized soul always has patience. Ramanujarji says that Pari Vidya Manasya Api Tan Prat Avikruti Tattvam. Patience is keeping the mind unmodified even when harmed by others. Thank you so much. Patience is keeping the mind unmodified even when harmed by others. That is why you see the quality of patience in the lives of great personalities. You see this in Buddha's life, in Mahavir's life, and also in Shri Krishna's life. When Mahavir was performing austerities, then a person came and hammered nails into his ears, but it did not matter to him, and he just remained seated there. Christ got crucified, and yet Christ said, Lord, you forgive all of these people because they do not know what they are doing. This is patience. Patience is the power to tolerate things. It is not the attitude of getting revenge. It is the power to tolerate things. And these words are very important. Only one who is powerful can tolerate things. Many people think that a person who tolerates is weak. No, only a person who is powerful can tolerate things. That is why two words come with the word tolerate: the power to tolerate and the character to tolerate. A person who has power can tolerate, and a person who has character can tolerate. Patience is a quality of character. Why does a wise person have this quality of patience? It is because a wise person does not consider anyone to be another person. Therefore, he is able to tolerate. He never has the attitude of gaining revenge. There is no other person for him, and there is no separate person for him. Sukhasya dukhasya nakopi data parodi dati tiku buddhi resha aham karomi ti vruta vimana swakarma sutro gahito hit loke. Nobody can make me happy or sad. Thinking that somebody else has given me sorrows is unintelligence. My pains are as a result of the desires that I had and the actions that were performed in my previous births. When can one have the attitude of getting revenge? It is when one thinks that another person is ruining something of mine, and another person is damaging something of mine. Another person is not even able to do something wrong of you. On the path that I am walking on the grace that the Supreme Soul is showering on me, how can somebody else ruin something of mine? How can another person give me sorrows? Sukhasya dukhasya nokobi data parodi dati tiku bhuti resha aham karomi iti vruta vivana swakarma sutro gahito hiloke. Nobody can make us happy or sad. Thinking that somebody else has given me sorrows is unintelligence. My pains are as a result of the desires I had and the actions that were performed in my previous births. Nobody can make me happy, and nobody can make me sad. Thinking that somebody else has given me sorrows is unintelligence. This is because if another person is able to give us pleasures and pains, then we become a slave. Is our happiness not in our hands? Somebody does something, then we get happy. If somebody does something, then we get sad. We are slaves then. A wise person knows that I am not the slave. The other person is not able to ruin anything of mine, and the other person is not able to make me sad. Then where does the attitude of getting revenge remain? If I were to go further from the perspective of a devotee, then I would say that even towards those who have done something wrong against him, the wise person has a feeling of forgiveness towards them because he has love towards them. He feels that this is my own person. He may have made a mistake. I'll give a very simple example. At the time of eating, when we are chewing and the tongue gets squashed between the teeth, then what do? A part of the tongue gets torn and we shriek in pain. Then we make effort so that the part of the tongue reduces and the tongue likes it. But does anyone have a thought in their minds that what do these teeth think of themselves? They are harming the tongue and therefore I'll break the teeth. Does anybody feel like this? No, because one thinks that the tongue is mine and the teeth are also mine. If one realizes the same thing about the world as he thinks about himself, that sometimes such things may happen by people, and sometimes the teeth may come and squash the tongue, but it is my tooth and not anybody else's. Therefore, one does not have the attitude that I will break them, I'll cut them, I'll do this and that to them. This is not the characteristic of a wise person. It may be the characteristic of a material person, but it's not the characteristic of a wise person. A wise person is patient. The next quality Shri Krishna says in this verse is arjavam, uprightness. These are very beautiful qualities, and if one makes efforts to bring them into their lives, then they'll realize. And all of these things can be put into practice by us. It is not as if we're talking about another person called Mr. X. It is a description of me and it's a description of you. We have to understand to what degree we have incorporated these qualities into us. A wise person is not someone who reads books. Can you see this humility and someone who has this attitude of wanting respect reduce? If so, then this person has advanced according to the measurements of Gnan, wisdom. Has this person's ostentation reduced in his life, and has his nature of showing things reduced? If so, then he has gone closer to the Lord. Has the quality of non-violence come into his life? Has the feeling of patience and forgiveness awakened in him? Arjavam means uprightness and straightforwardness. The word Arjuna, the name Arjuna, has come from the root Ruju, and Ruju means straightforward. From this comes the word Arjavam, Ruju Bhavaha Avyaktaram. This is when a person has no crookedness in any way. This is when a person is straightforward. In the Srimad Bhagavad, while describing the story of the flute, I ask the question, why does a flute reach the lips of the Supreme Soul, Sri Krishna? A poet has written a very nice poem where the gopis get together and ask the flute, "O flute, what must you have done? What qualities must you have? We also love Sri Krishna and we do everything, but we stay so far away from Sri Krishna, and Sri Krishna places you at his lips. You reach unto his lips. What such qualities do you have?" The flute describes its qualities, but I'll say that the one most relevant quality for this moment, the reason why the flute reaches the lips of the Lord, is because the flute is straightforward. One who is straightforward is liked by God very much. All of us are straightforward, but we're straightforward like a jalebi, which is an Indian sparrow sweet. A wise person is straightforward. Raman Sharji says that straightforwardness is having a uniform disposition towards others in speech, mind and body. Paran prati van mana kaya vruti nam ekarupta. One whose speech, mind and body are in one form is straightforward. Madhusudan Saraswati ji says in his commentary that yatha hridayam vyavaranam. If one behaves in the way that his heart is, then such a person is a straightforward person. This is a person who is absolutely the same on the inside and on the outside. He is like a small child. A small child is straightforward. There is no manipulation in a child. Just like we have the concept of Swarg and Vaikunt in Sanatana Dharma, Christ has given the phrase in Christianity called the kingdom of God. Christ was once asked, "Who can enter into your kingdom of God?" Christ gave the immediate answer, "Those who are childlike can enter into the kingdom of God." Note that this was not childish, but childlike. A young child is very straightforward. There are no complications in a young child. We teach complications to children, and while a child is innocent, then the child is not able to hide itself. There was a person who was going with others, and he took his 5-year-old child with him. On the road he said that you should not ask anyone for anything, you should not take anything for anyone, and if we go to somebody else's house, then you should not take anything from them. The child asked with innocent, "Father, I'll not take anything else, but if they give me a chocolate, then can I take it?" It is a child and it likes chocolates very much. The father told the child that first you should say no 3 or 4 times and then you should take it. He told the child this, and they went to the houses of those whose houses they were going to. This person gave the child a chocolate and said, "Child, here is your chocolate." The child immediately looked at the uncle and said, "No, no, no, thank you." A child is straightforward. A child has no plotting in him. This is called straightforwardness. This is the quality of a wise person. A wise person is like a child. That is why you would always see the innocence of a child in the eyes of a wise person. You can see innocence in the eyes of whoever has attained the supreme truth. You see calculations in other people's eyes all the time. They're always calculating one thing or the other. I get frightened in seeing all of this. So many calculations are taking place. The innocence in the eyes of a child and in the eyes of a wise person are the same, but the difference is that the child is not yet seeing faults, whereas the wise person has gone beyond faults. The wise person understands faults, but the wise person has gone beyond faults. A child does not even know about faults, whereas a wise person knows about faults. If the other person is calculating, and if the other person is doing manipulation, but the wise person himself is beyond this. This is what you call a wise person. A wise person has straightforwardness. The smell of this straightforwardness of a wise person spreads by itself. He does not go and tell anyone that I am wise, or I have had an experience of the Supreme Soul. He does not say anything like this. Just like when a flower blooms and its smell spreads by itself, in the same way they experience wisdom of a wise person spreads by itself. Whoever comes near them can attain this. If you remain 2 miles away from a flower, then you'll not get the smell. And if you remain 2 miles away from a flower, and you don't get the smell, then the fault is not of the flower, but it's the fault of the person who remains far away. You should go closer. The flower has no inhibitions, and a flower does not say, I'll give my smell to one person, not the other. No. The flower says, come closer and take it. Whoever comes closer gets the experience of straightforwardness of the wise person. One who does not get to experience this from far away. Beauty is hidden in straightforwardness. The beauty lies in simplicity. The more straightforward a person is, then the more beautiful he is. And the more manipulative a person is, then the more ugly he is. That is why I often say that if you see the films, then you'll be able to understand a lot. If you look at a villain of Hindi films, then he always looks ugly. I often think about why there's never a handsome villain. There's never a brown villain. No, because they have to go with established notions. Maybe a person with a good-looking face may be a villain in his heart in practical life, and if they're good-looking and manipulative, then they can put makeup on them, put something on eyes, and make them look ugly as possible. But the ones they show in the films are ugly. Why is this? Because they are not straightforward. The villain is not meant to be a simple person. The villain does not have any straightforwardness, and because he has no straightforwardness, the ugliness has to be brought in him. The more straightforward a person is, the more beautiful he is. This is divine beauty. Does a small child not look beautiful? Why does a small child look beautiful? This is because a small child is straightforward and a small child is innocent. If this innocence lasts, then the saints of North India say that Bachan se Bachan tak. It will remain in the same way that it was. This straightforwardness will remain in the same way that it was. The same amount of attractiveness remains in that smile. The same amount of intimacy is felt in their eyes, in their smile, and in their speech, because they are straightforward. If I were to talk about the straightforwardness in the mind, speech, and behavior in practical life, if one wants to begin from the ABCD, then straightforwardness of mind is having no deceit, insincerity, envy, or anything like this towards anyone. This is the straightforwardness of the mind. When one has the feelings of love and compassion towards others, then the mind becomes straightforward. The more deceit, insincerity, and envy that one has, then the more the mind creates difficulties. Through love for the truth, the mind becomes straightforward. The more one lies, then the more that the mind becomes treacherous, and the more that tension in the mind increases. A person says one thing to one person, another thing to a second person, and yet another thing to a third person. A person has to remember so much that I said this to one person, this to that person, another thing to the third person. If these three people come together, then look at the fun that this person has. Whatever a straightforward person says is the truth, and therefore he has no tensions in his mind. The mind becomes straightforward. How can the speech be made straightforward? What is the straightforwardness of the speech? It is a speech that never criticizes. It is a speech that never uses words that insults others. It is a speech that never brings hurt to another person's heart. And if that reaches another person's heart, then such a person holds both his hands and says, I have made a mistake. To admit this requires a lot of qualifications. To make a mistake is one thing, and to admit after making a mistake requires a big heart. How big a heart does a person need in order to admit his mistakes? The most difficult words to utter in the whole world are, I am sorry. One should have straightforwardness of the speech, and one should have straightforwardness of behavior. Not having any crookedness in one's behavior is straightforwardness of behavior. This is straightforwardness. The next quality that Shri Krishna describes is Acharya Upasanam, service of the teacher. Srimad Adi Shankaracharya says that Moksha sadhano apadeshu acharya shrudashru shadi prayogena sevanam, meaning serving, obeying, and staying near to one who shows the means of liberation and who teaches the way to liberation is called service of the teacher. The Gita has used very nice words here. Acharya Upasanam, service of the teacher. Upasanam can be split into two words, upa, near, and asanam, meaning to sit. Therefore, Upasana means to sit near, and Acharya Upasana means to sit near a teacher. The literal translation of Acharya Upasana is to be closer to a teacher. One should have close communion with such a teacher, and through close communion, a relationship is formed. If a person stays far away from someone, then how can it create relations with them? One should remain close to them with the body, mind, and heart, because staying close with the body may not be possible for everyone. One has to be extremely lucky if they successfully get to stay with a great personality all the time. But at least we can stay with them in the mind. That is what Upasana means. Who can you call Acharya Upasanam, service of the teacher? Shri Krishna has already said in the Gita how one can attain wisdom. Tat vidhi pranipatena pariprashena sevaya. Learn that by humble reverence, by inquiry, and by service. Ramacharji reverses this when he says that you should bow down to Acharya, ask them questions with a lot of humility in order to get a solution to the doubts in your mind, and you should serve them. Atma Gnana Pane Pradani Acharya Pani Prata Prashna Sevadi Niravartanam. This is called Acharya Upasanam, service of the teacher. What is the definition of an Acharya? I'll speak about a very beautiful verse that I found. A definition of an acharya is achinoti achacharastam acharya stapayata vi swayam acharate yasma acharya ichoyate. The definition of an acharya is one who himself studies many different scriptures, selects from them, and finds ways as to how the principles here selected will be applied by the people that are in society or his pupils and disciples. This is the great quality of an acharya. A teacher teaches us, whereas an acharya brings into practice. Therefore, an acharya is not just a teacher, he is not just interested in teaching, and is not even interested in just communicating, he is more interested in the applied aspect of it. He thinks about how the person in front of him will apply what he is saying in their lives. This is because only then will the wisdom have a meaning. If one does not apply it in their lives, then this wisdom becomes only intellectual exercises, and it only remains a subject for talking. An acharya is one he who himself studies many different scriptures, selects from them, and finds ways as to how the principles here selected will be applied by the people that are in society or his pupils and disciples. Achinoti charastam acharya stapayata vi swayam acharate yasma acharya ichoyote. And how can it be put into practice by others? It is when the acharya first puts it into practice himself. Swayam acharate yasmat. He puts the principles of the scriptures into practice, and he realizes that something can be put into practice in a certain way. Then he tells others that I have done this, and it is done like this. If you walk on this path, then you get these problems, but we would have to go on that path. That is why it said that the acharya first puts it into practice himself. Swayam acharate yasmat. Such a one is called the acharya. Acharya is a word of a very high level. Shri Krishna says that one should upasanam, sit near and serve such an acharya through faith and devotion. And just like our power is, for example, our mind, body and wealth, we should serve the Guru with these and attain him being pleased. We should do such things from which the acharya becomes pleased. And saints say that such a Guru remembers you at the time of praying, when his meditation finishes, or when he is having a conversation with the Supreme Soul. When a Guru remembers someone in this situation, then such a person's wishes will be fulfilled. This is the meaning of acharya upasanam, service of the teacher. The Guru remembers you at the time of praying, when his meditation finishes, or when he's having a conversation with the Supreme Soul, and all this person's wishes will be fulfilled. When he comes out of a deep meditative state, and his first thoughts of a material world come, and if our name comes into it, then there will be no problems for us in our lives. You not even expect it, but all the problems in your life will begin to get solved. This is the quality of an acharya. That is why Shri Krishna says that a wise person has the quality of acharya upasanam, service of the teacher. An ordinary person regards this to be a miracle, but it is not a miracle. It is the consequence of mental strength. This is because he has a personal power with the power of the Supreme Lord. This is just like a simple example that I remember while speaking. If I were to speaking with someone on a long distance call, for example, if someone has called from America and we're talking for a long distance, then our connection is on, and so it comes up that we need someone else to join the line, and so we tell them that we'll bring them on the line, and we call the other person and join them in a conference call. How does this happen? In the same way, an acharya is one who is himself constantly in communication with the Supreme Soul, and he joins us into this conference call saying that here you speak also. This is an acharya. It is the nature of most of us that the human mind is such they only thinks about a person who they want to get something from. We do not get any other thoughts of anyone else. Therefore, one should reach such a state where such a person does not want anything from us, and yet he still thinks of us. How proximate is this? He has no self-interest, and yet he still remembers us. This is acharya upasana, service of the teacher. The qualities of an acharya are described in the Vishnu Purana. Acharya Veda Sampan Vishnu Bhakto Vimashara Mantragno Mantra Bhaktascha Sada Mantra Shayas Suchi Guru Bhakti Samayukta Puranyabdo Visheshtaha Ekam Lakshana Sabbab Guru Ritya Abhidayate. Here are the qualities of an acharya as are described in the Vishnu Purana. An acharya is one who has the wisdom of the Vedas. He is a devotee of the Supreme Soul, worships the Supreme Soul, and has no feeling of envy of him. He knows mantras, and not only that, but he is a devotee of mantras. And he gives refuge of mantras and is pure. He respects continuity of traditions. He has wisdom of the Puranas. A person who has these qualities has the qualifications to become a guru and an acharya. Because an acharya is a devotee of the Supreme Soul and worships the Supreme Soul, he has no arrogance, and he knows for certain that everything that is happening in his life is being done by God. This is a devotee of Vishnu, the Supreme Soul. Whatever is happening in his life, he gives the fame for this to God. This is a devotee of Vishnu. And acharya has no envy in him. He gives constructive criticism sometimes, but he never has jealousy or envy. And acharya knows mantras, and not only that, but he's a devotee of mantras. A lot of people know mantras, but very few people are devotees of mantras. A lot of people know mantras, but they do not have faith in them and do not have devotion in them. An acharya is one who himself knows the mantra, is a devotee of the mantra, and not only that, he gives refuge of the mantra. An acharya respects traditions and says that I learnt this from my guru, I learnt this from a saint, or I learnt this from the scripture. He says this. An acharya has the wisdom of the Puranas. This means that he knows things of a peak level and yet can say them in a simple and straightforward language. It is very easy to say difficult things in a difficult language, but it is most difficult to say difficult things in an easy language. If two doctors are discussing a report and are talking about a disease, then while those two doctors are speaking, they will just keep looking because we cannot possibly understand what they're saying. But when we ask them what happened in our reports, then they make efforts to explain it to us, but we cannot understand. They just say, I'll write this medicine for you and you go and get it. They are not able to explain it. But this is very easy to talk with a doctor in difficult language. It is very difficult to talk about the name and characteristics of something. But to explain difficult things in simple and straightforward language is difficult. This is the quality of an acharya. One who has all the qualities described in this verse above in the Vishnu Purana has the qualifications to become a guru and an acharya. If you find such a guru, then Kabir said, Yahatan vish ki menadi guru amrit ke khan, sis diye jo guru mile to bhi sasta jaan. The world is a poisonous tree bearing poisonous fruits, and the guru is a never-ending source of nectar. It is therefore a cheap bargain if you get a guru by offering your head. If you get a guru by just offering your head, then consider it as a cheap bargain. Ravi Shankar Maharaj explains an acharya in a very nice way by saying that one who knows how to live through dharma is an acharya. This is very much written in the language of villages. I'll say it when I refer to him a lot, that Ravi Shankar Maharaj has written a book called the Gita Bodh. It is written completely in village language. I often feel it's so basic, but he writes such magic in places. Ravi Shankar Maharaj says that one who knows how to live through dharma is an acharya. The words of Ravi Shankar Maharaj are that one who searches and finds the secret wisdom and makes it simple to explain to people is an acharya. An acharya is one who has put wisdom into his conduct. He puts it into practice. One who teaches us how to put wisdom into practice is an acharya. He finds the simplest of all meanings for the most difficult of things from dharmic scriptures and explains them. One who sees a whole tree in a small seed is an acharya. He sees the potentiality and does not look at what the human being who is within is like today, what people say about him or what he's like now. He looks at what the potentiality is. And many times the people does not know about his own powers. The acharya finds this and grows this tree. Such a person is an acharya. He brings the potentiality outside. He turns his pupil into a guru. And the pupil does not even know, even after going through such a transformation, that so many changes have been brought about in me. This is an acharya. One who sees the whole world in a small life is an acharya. And Ravi Shankar Maharaj gives a very nice example when defining an acharya, when he says that a mother is an acharya. A mother takes food herself, eats, digests it, and gives such a soft, cool, sweet, and easily digestible milk to a child. And when she gives this milk, then she gives it with such love to such an extent that if the child is not drinking it, then the mother loses assurance of herself, thinking that my child is not drinking my milk. This is the level of an acharya. He finds the most mysterious of all truths from the scriptures, makes them straightforward, gives them, and if the other person does not accept them, then he loses assurance of himself because he thinks about why the other person's life is not changing. While feeding a child, the mother thinks that why is my child's weight not increasing? Is there something missing in me? I'm not looking after my child properly. A guru looks after his pupil this much. This is what an acharya is. Not only that, but I'll go even further to say that if there is something that is not good for the child, then the mother herself gives that thing up. While feeding the child, somewhere men do not eat certain things because they think it will give difficulties to children. They may like extremely spicy foods, and they would normally eat a lot of them, but while giving milk to the child, the women think that I should not eat many chilies because it will not be good for the child, and they put the chilies by the side. In the same way, an acharya likes to do certain things, and it feels good to him to do certain things, but he thinks that if I do this, then what effect will it have in the people following behind me? Therefore, I should not do it. He understands this and puts it into practice himself. One who understands his own responsibilities is an acharya. It is a very great state to be an acharya. What should an acharya be like? There are qualifications for this. In reality, when we become true pupils and we get the grace of the Supreme Soul, then the acharya or the guru comes and stands in front of us. At that time, we need a sensitivity in order to recognize that this is my guru. But perhaps if we're too intelligent, too rational, and we do not hear the voice in our hearts, if we're hearing it and we try to squash it by saying that we want to rationalize everything, then for these people, I will say that an acharya or a guru should be such that I'm now going to describe. First, it is one who, according to our perspective, is truly wise and having wisdom of the truth. We feel that he has wisdom and he knows the secrets of life that we do not know about. This is the first qualification of someone who you can make a guru. Please note that it is important from our perspective, and we ourselves should feel that this person knows. If somebody else comes up to us and says that this person knows a lot and it's very good, then such a person cannot become your guru. Personal experience is very necessary. Secondly, a person can become a guru if they have some wisdom or experience of each and every path, such as karma yoga, the way of action, jnana yoga, the way of wisdom, bhakti yoga, the way of devotion, and dhyana yoga, the way of meditation. For example, we may not know what our path is, and may be walking on the path of bhakti yoga, the way of devotion, but it may be the case that we are travelers on the path of jnana yoga, the way of wisdom. If this is the case, then at least such a person should know that we are travelers on the path of jnana yoga, the way of wisdom, and he should show us how to take the route forward. It is just like a doctor should know about all the medicines. Only one of these medicines can be of use, but the doctor should know about all the different routes. Only then can one become a guide. If we go to a hill station, then there are 4 or 5 routes. One route is tough. If youngsters have gone, then they'll reach, but if an elderly person comes with a walking stick and asks where to go, then a guide will say to go to the elderly person to take the easy route. The elderly person will ask that you're sending the 18-year-old on the other route. The guide will reply that this is a rather difficult path and elderly people will not find it comfortable there. Therefore, you should go through this route. They should know about both routes. He should know about all the paths that are there in order to reach the Supreme Soul, such as karma yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga, and dhyana yoga. The third qualification needed in order to become a guru is a very important thing. It is a person in whose presence, who's staying with, or through whose speech, when you're listening to his discourses, it feels that even without asking, the doubts arising in our minds are beginning to go away. If this is the case, then consider that this is a guru. One does not even need to ask, and yet all one's doubts go away. A person in whose presence you experience peace and happiness is a guru. Believe your heart. If you sit with him for half an hour or an hour and you feel a rejuvenation, then such a person has a qualification in order to become a guru. His vibrations are like this. No matter how frustrated you are from home, so many arguments have happened, and you have lost faith in yourself, then go and sit by the sea for half an hour. You'll feel a little good. In the same way, a person in whose presence you feel happiness is a guru. A poet says that Shanti pamare ene sant kahiye. One who radiates peace is called a saint. One experiences peace and happiness in his proximity. We forget about our own agonies and put this pot to the side. Such a person has the qualification to become a guru. You should accept such a person as your guru. A person with whom, when we speak, who speaks only about our interests, is worthy of becoming a guru. He always looks at what our interests are and does not look at his own interests. He only has the thoughts in his mind that what can I say so that this person's life can become beautiful. He is always talking about our interests. He has no expectations of objects from us. He has no objective expectations. He has no material expectations. Such a person is an acharya. He puts our strengths on the right path. He can say that you should use the strengths of this path. He has no expectations of any objects for himself. A person whose entire life is for the well-being of society and for the well-being of his disciples is worthy of being called a guru. Another great thing is that a person in whose presence and staying with whom you begin to see your goal clearer, and our goal becomes clearer. And not only that, but our eagerness to walk towards that goal increases. Such a person is a guru. Our motion towards the goal becomes radiant and splendid. Such a person is a guru. Sit down quietly and think about whether you've ever seen such a person. And if you have seen such a person, then ask yourself whether you have bowed your head down in front of him. And if you have bowed down your head down, then you are fortunate. If you have not bowed down your head, then quickly go to them and bow your head down. Otherwise, you'll be deprived of something in your life. Pujya Dongreji Maharaj used to say that a person in whose presence, by looking at the person, through talking with that person, the three things of communication, vision and conversation are such that you're physically in contact with a person from there, for no such thing is said, and remembering whom our bad qualities and our faults go away and divine qualities begin to come, then such a person is a guru. If you're about to do something wrong, then if you remember them, then your thoughts will go back thinking, I cannot do this. Consider such a person as a guru and a great saint. He must have some grace of the Supreme Soul, and he must be in close communion with God. Such a person is a guru. And last thing that is said here is that if you can't find such a uniqueness, originality and distinguishment anywhere else apart from him, if I show the equivalent in the material world, then once you fall in love with someone, then if another person who is 10 times better than him comes and stands in front of you, then you will not see him. Rajanir Gamirani, Chana Vintiyani. Once the king liked the queen, then he became blind to all the other women. With whoever you feel that this person is great, then no matter who else there is, your mind and your heart will never believe that they are as distinguished, unique and original as this person, then consider that this person is your guru. You have to stay with such a great saint. What is Acharya Upasanam? It is only thinking about your benefit. We have attained a person and we have attained communion with the great saint. But then what should we do? Many times it so happens that even after meeting a great personality, we do not develop in the way that we should. What is the reason for this? Upon staying with such a person, one should think about, how can I develop upon staying with him? How can I benefit upon staying with him? How can I attain liberation upon staying with him? How can I become closer to the Supreme Soul? And how can my life become beautiful? One should think about this. People climb until this last step, and what happens many times is that it's written in the scriptures, this person keeps thinking, what actions is he doing? Why did you do this? Why did you do that? He acts like this with me, but why does he act like that with different people? If we get stuck in seeing all of this, then it's finished. Therefore, while staying with him, we should think about and pay attention to how our lives can develop. We should not think about useless things such as what is happening in others' lives or what is happening in his life, and form arguments in them, as this will lead to us wasting our times in our own lives. We should go to the extent that if that great saint does not wish it and does not give permission for it, then we should not keep a formal guru-pupil relationship with them. We should not even put a stamp of guru and pupil. We should continue to consider them as our guru, and our hearts and our lives will develop. Without going into that formality, one should consider them to be our guru. It is a very big qualification to become someone's own person. A poet says that जीवन में रोब ही सीखा है, न हमें है न कुछ हम हक से सीखे हैं, न कुछ हम रो के सीखे हैं, जीवन में रो ही सीखे हैं, किसे के होकर सीखे हैं. Whatever I've learned in life, I have not learned by laughing, I have not learned by crying. Whatever I've learned in life, I have learned by belonging to someone. One should become somebody's own and attain them. Everything one learns in life is by becoming somebody's own. This is what Acharya Upasanam is. The next quality that Shri Krishna describes in this verse is Shaucham, purity. This is a quality of a wise person. Srimad Adi Shankaracharya Ji says that Shaucham Kaya Malanam Rud Chabalayamam Vakrashanam Antascha Mahasra prati paksha pavinaya ragadi mananam apayanam shocham. Meaning purity is of two types, on the inside and on the outside. Purity of the body is clay and water, and inner purity is a removement of inner defilements such as rag, attraction, and dvesh, repulsion, by cultivating their opposites. Srimad Adi Shankaracharya wrote this 1,200 years ago. At that time when he bathed, he would bathe in clay. If one wished to make efforts to make themselves clean, then they would have to do it with clay. They still do this in the villages today. Guruji knows himself, because when he was given the janoi, the sacred thread, then it was said that whenever he would go to the bathroom, then he should wash his hands with clay. This is said in our scriptures that we should wash our hands with clay. Outer purity happens through hygiene. Inner purity is a removement of inner defilements such as rag, attraction, and dvesh, repulsion, by cultivating the opposites. Therefore, for the inner defilements that are inside us and the rubbish that is there inside us, we should bring the opposites and get rid of that rubbish. For example, there is desire. This is a fault. To remove this, we should bring the divine quality of love. There is anger, which is also a fault. To remove this, we should bring the feeling of forgiveness. Inner purification is removing the rubbish inside us by bringing the opposites in. Ramanujacharya says that Atma Gnana Tat Sadhana Yogayata Mano Va Kayagata Shastra Siddha Socham. It says that competence of mind, speech and body as enjoyed by the scriptures for the wisdom of the self and the means of its attainment is purity. Madhusudan Saraswati ji has said something very nice about inner purity. He says that inner purity comes as a result of four things. Friendliness towards the happy, this is very necessary for inner purity. Compassion towards the sad, rejoicing in those performing punya, the opposite of sins, and disregard for the sinners. From this one gets inner purity. One should have a feeling of friendliness towards the happy. The majority of people get envy towards those who are happy. I once heard from a great saint that it's the nature of people that they talk about others' wealth and their own intelligence to complete exaggeration. They speak very highly of these two things, other people's wealth and their own intelligence. You see in society that if you wish to talk about somebody's wealth, there's this thing that you say that he has so much wealth, he has millions, then nobody talks small. People say that he does not show what he has, but we all know that he has this so much. People never talk small about other people's wealth. And the same thing happens to people's own intelligence. When people talk about their own intelligence, then they give their own fingerprints, saying that whatever I'm saying is true, we have a lot of experiences. One should have a feeling of friendliness towards happy people. One should have a compassion towards sad people. One should rejoice in those performing punya, the opposites of sins, and disregard for the sinners. When this comes in attraction, repulsion, and arrogance, all get cleansed from our thoughts. It's said in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavad that non-attachment towards karma, actions. Karma sva sangha socham. The Gita gives a whole message of anasakta karma yoga without attachment, and nishkam karma yoga without desire. Patanjali's Yoga Sutra says that through inner purity, 5 things get attained. They are all consequences one after another and are all interconnected. First of all, one's thoughts get purified. When one gets purified from the inside, then their thoughts get purified. Because of this, the second consequence that comes from pure thoughts, one's mind becomes happy. The purer your thoughts, then the more that the mind is happy. Because the mind becomes happy, concentration becomes easy. This is the third step. That is why you always see that whenever you sit down to worship God, then when you are happy, then you will get bliss from performing jap, the chanting the name of God, and mara, turning prayer beads. Your mind will become concentrated. But when there are disturbances and turbulences in your mind, then on that day you will not feel concentration, and the mara, the prayer bead, will get turned like a machine. When does concentration come? It is when one attains inner purity and one gets purified from the inside. When the thoughts become purified, then the mind becomes happy, and when the mind becomes happy, then concentration becomes easily. When concentration comes, then the fourth step comes when one is able to control the senses. This is because when the mind becomes concentrated, then all the muddling of the sense stops. When one is able to control the senses, then achieves success in attaining qualifications for Atma Sakshatkar, the divine vision of the soul, which is the 5th consequence. This is outer purity and inner purity. In outer purity, another thing can come. The scriptures say that outer purity is if one earns wealth through hard work on a path of authenticity, and they use that wealth to put pure foods in their bodies, they are purified. For example, that they do not eat things that they should not eat, and they do not drink things that they should not drink, no matter how much wealth they have earned. If they earn wealth through hard work on a path of authenticity, and use that wealth to put good foods in their bodies, that they are purified, then there is outer purity. Shri Krishna says that the next quality that a wise person should have is steadfastness. This is steadiness. Srimad Adi Shankaracharya Ji says that persistence is firmness in an exclusive pursuit in the way leading to salvation. Sir bhavaha moksha marge eva krita vyavasa itvam. Ramanujar Ji says that possessing unshakable faith in the scriptures concerning the self. Adhyatma shastre udistu artestu nishchalatvam. One should have unshakable faith in them. When you go ahead on the path of moksha, liberation, the path of bhakti, devotion, on the path of jnana, wisdom, the difficulties come in this and obstacles will also come. One who does not stop his efforts by all of these, and not only that, but when obstacles comes, then he increases his efforts, such a person can be called steadfast. For ordinary peoples, when problems come, then they can move out the way. This is not steadfastness, but fickleness. A wise person is steadfast. 3 ways in which to attain steadfastness for the antakaran, inner being, are described in our scriptures over and over again. Shravan, listening; manan, thinking; and nididhyasan, putting into practice. Shravan, listening; manan, thinking; and nididhyasan, putting into practice. First, one should listen to great thoughts. Once one has heard them, then they should think about them so that they become right and the foundations are laid, and then one should put them into practice by applying them in their lives. This is steadfastness. Steadfastness is a quality of strength. It symbolizes strength. You see it from the body that when a young child is weak, then it is not able to stand in one place, and it cannot even sit in one place. You have to really look after the child. When you pick up a child aged 2 months, then you get a lot of fear while holding it, thinking, I should hold it like this, I should hold it like that, I should not press it too much. The child is weak, and therefore it has absolutely no steadfastness. The more that strength comes, and the more that one becomes steadfast. Children play a game where they have to keep their hands straight. The stronger that they are, then the more steadfast they are. You're not even able to move them when they are steadfast. Steadfastness is the quality of strength. A strong person can remain steadfast. If you have begun any work and cannot become steadfast, then this means that you're not strong. If one has strength of the body, then they can remain steadfast with the body. If one has strength of mind, then one can become steadfast with the mind. And if one has strength of the intellect, then one can remain steadfast with the intellect. One needs strength of the body, the mind, and the intellect. There are even ways in which this can come. If we look at these ways in this, then this 13th chapter will not be finished. And we have to finish the 13th chapter. Therefore, we'll go further. The next quality that Sri Krishna described says that a wise person should have is Atma Vinigraha, self-control. Srimad Adi Shankaracharya Ji says that many things come in self-control, including discipline imposed on both the body and the senses when the function is against our real interest, and the confinement of their activities to the righteous path. Atmana aprakarata atma shabda vasya karya karna sangasasta vinigraha svabhavena sarvatra pravuttasya sanmarge eva nirodha atma vinigraha. Many times it so happens that our body and our senses are going against us. They are doing activities against us. To control them, to bring them on the right path, and to make them steady on the right path is called self-control. One should keep the body, senses, and the mind independent. Here the word Atma in Atma Vinigraha, self-control, does not mean the soul or the spirit. Here the word Atma means the Antakaran, the inner being, the senses and the body. The word Atma Vinigraha can be split into the words Atma, self, V in your unique way, and Nigraha, control. Therefore Atma Vinigraha means to control one's own self in their own unique way. 9 qualities have been described in this 5th verse of the 5 describing one who is wise. We will now look at the next qualities in the 8th verse. End of class.